Most people go through life without questioning too much. They wake up, follow their routine, interact with others on a surface level, and accept what they've been told about the world. But then, there are those who see things differently, people who think deeply, analyze everything, and refuse to accept things at face value. These are the highly intelligent individuals, the thinkers, the skeptics, the ones who don't just live in the world but try to understand it. And for this very reason, they are often misunderstood. They unsettle others. They are seen as intimidating, strange, or even dangerous. Arthur Schopenhauer, the German philosopher, once said, "The higher the intelligence, the greater the distance from the world." This quote captures something profound about why highly intelligent people often struggle in society. Their way of seeing the world is fundamentally different from the norm. They question traditions, challenge authority, and expose the flaws in commonly accepted beliefs. While this ability to think critically and independently should be celebrated, it often leads to isolation instead. Consider the story of Galileo Galilei. In the 17th century, he dared to suggest that the Earth revolved around the sun, contradicting the Church and the prevailing wisdom of his time. His intelligence and commitment to truth should have made him a hero, but instead, they made him a threat. He was condemned, placed under house arrest, and forced to recant his discoveries. This is a pattern that repeats throughout history. When intelligent individuals challenge the status quo, society reacts with fear, rejection, or even hostility. But why does this happen? Why are highly intelligent people often seen as intimidating? One reason is that intelligence exposes the illusions people depend on. Most individuals find comfort in certainty. They prefer simple explanations, clear-cut rules, and traditions that provide a sense of order. But intelligent people look beneath the surface and see the complexity, the contradictions, the uncertainty that others ignore. This can be unsettling to those who rely on familiar beliefs to navigate life. Imagine a person who has spent their entire life believing in a simple, comforting idea, that success is purely the result of hard work. Then they meet someone who presents evidence that success is also influenced by luck, privilege, and circumstances beyond one's control. This new information threatens their worldview. Instead of considering it with an open mind, they might react defensively, rejecting the intelligent person as arrogant or negative. This is because deep down, many people don't want the truth. They want reassurance. Another reason intelligent people intimidate others is that they often communicate in a way that is different from the norm. They are driven by logic, evidence, and reason, while most social interactions are based on emotions, social cues, and unspoken rules. This creates a disconnect. A highly intelligent person might make a comment meant to provoke thought, but instead it comes across as condescending. They might try to discuss a deep philosophical issue at a party, only to find others uninterested or even annoyed. This is something Schopenhauer understood well. He believed that intelligence and solitude go hand in hand because truly deep thinking requires stepping away from the distractions of ordinary life. He observed that many highly intelligent people prefer solitude not because they dislike others, but because they struggle to find intellectual equals. They crave meaningful conversations, but these are rare, so they often turn to books, ideas, and personal reflection instead. This can create a paradox. Highly intelligent individuals often want to connect, to share their ideas, and to engage in meaningful discussions. But their very intelligence makes it harder for them to relate to others. If they try to downplay their intellect to fit in, they feel like they are betraying themselves. But if they speak openly, they risk being misunderstood or alienated. This is why many great thinkers and creators throughout history have lived lonely lives, misunderstood by the very society they sought to enrich. Take Nikola Tesla, for example. A brilliant inventor and visionary, he revolutionized the world with his ideas. But despite his intelligence, he spent much of his life alone, ridiculed by his peers, and financially unstable. He was too ahead of his time, too different, and his genius was not fully appreciated until long after his death. This leads to another reason why intelligence can be intimidating. Highly intelligent people often see and predict things before others do. They anticipate problems, recognize patterns, and understand consequences that others miss. While this should be an asset, it can instead make them seem overly negative or even paranoid. Imagine someone in a group who warns that a new business venture will fail due to overlooked risks. Instead of being thanked for their insight, they might be dismissed as pessimistic. Or consider the way intelligent individuals often recognize social and political issues before they become widely acknowledged. At first, they are ignored or criticized. But later, when their warnings prove correct, society conveniently forgets that they once mocked them. Schopenhauer had a particularly bleak view of human nature, believing that most people are driven by selfish desires rather than reason. He argued that intelligent individuals see through the illusions of society, recognizing that much of what people do is motivated by vanity, competition, and superficial concerns. While others chase status, wealth, and approval, the highly intelligent are often more interested in knowledge, truth, and self-improvement. But because their priorities are different, they can appear strange or unrelatable. This is something we see in literature as well. Think of characters like Sherlock Holmes, brilliant but emotionally distant, often misunderstood by those around him. Or Victor Frankenstein in Mary Shelley's novel, a man whose intelligence and ambition isolate him, leading to tragedy. These stories resonate because they reflect a real-life pattern. Intelligence, when not balanced with emotional intelligence and social awareness, can lead to loneliness. But does this mean that intelligent people are doomed to a life of isolation and misunderstanding? Not necessarily. While intelligence can make social interactions more challenging, there are ways to bridge the gap. The most successful, intelligent individuals are those who learn to communicate in a way that resonates with others. Instead of overwhelming people with facts and logic, they find ways to make their insights relatable, using stories, humor, and patience to connect. Take Albert Einstein. Despite his immense intelligence, he had a playful, humble approach to communication. He used simple analogies to explain complex ideas, making science accessible to the public. Instead of trying to prove his superiority, he focused on inspiring curiosity in others. The lesson here is that intelligence is not just about knowledge, it's also about wisdom. True intelligence includes understanding how to navigate human nature, how to communicate effectively, and how to balance deep thinking with emotional connection. Those who master this balance can influence the world without becoming isolated from it. At the same time, society has a role to play. Instead of fearing intelligence, people should embrace it. Instead of dismissing deep thinkers as intimidating, society should recognize their value. The greatest advancements in history have come from those who dared to think differently, who challenged norms, questioned authority, and refused to accept easy answers. Without them, progress would be impossible. But this requires a cultural shift. It requires people to be open to uncomfortable truths, to value curiosity over certainty, and to encourage intellectual discussion rather than fearing it. It requires an education system that fosters critical thinking instead of mere memorization, and a society that rewards depth rather than superficiality. Schopenhauer believed that true happiness comes from within, from intellectual and artistic pursuits rather than social approval. While this perspective may seem pessimistic, it also offers a kind of freedom. It suggests that highly intelligent people do not need to seek validation from a world that often misunderstands them. Instead, they can find fulfillment in their own exploration of knowledge, creativity, and self-discovery. At the end of the day, intelligence is a gift, but it is also a responsibility. It can be a source of loneliness, but it can also be a source of transformation. The question is not whether society will always fear intelligent people. The question is whether intelligent people will let that fear silence them, or whether they will continue to seek truth, even in a world that often prefers comfortable illusions.